starting to record. You can get in every time.
Do it.
It is Danian Tomlinson.
Legend.
Yeah, Hall of Famer. Hall of Fame.
Legend.
He's
What
my
do you
favorite.
think about the later part of his career, the Jets era?
You know what's crazy is I really playing a little lounge music here, everybody. Just playing a little lounge music. Because now it's the morning show. It's the morning show with Nick and Luis.
This is
So
actual coffee.
having coffee, we're much more energized, we're much more ready. Um, bro, I was looking at the stats because I was like, oh, like it might be good to like I wear the jerseys, but I got to look up how these players ended. And I'm like he was still productive that last year with the Jets. Like, you know,
Hmm.
not utilized as much. So the workload was diminished. So that's why the stats don't stick out at you. But even with 75 carries, he did 280 yards. But what was interesting is he did 42 receptions for 449 yards. So for a total of 3 touchdowns. So like he was still productive that last year in the Jets. I just think the Jets suck, man. I can't believe Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets. I feel like that's where dreams go to die.
Dreams go to die. What was his last year in the NFL?
What happened?
What was LT's last year in the
2011.
NFL?
2011.
2011. 2011. I want to see what his fantasy stats were because I don't
Oh,
understand how good a player is unless you give it to me in fantasy stats. 132 or 133 PPR fantasy points compared to his 279 PPR fantasy points in his rookie season. So
because
it's
he was a dual threat running back. That's what's crazy
always,
was standing in
yeah,
these stats. Because in 2003 he had 725 yards and 4 touchdowns. Those are great stats for a wide receiver. He was a running back and still did over 1,000 yards rushing that same year. It like 1,600 yards rushing. That is crazy. That production, like he was the San Diego Chargers.
absolutely. Will we ever see? I don't think it's possible with the way that running backs are used now to see a 2006 line again. Are you familiar with his game in 2006? Do you want to guess how many rush TDs he had that year?
It's not fair because I see it.
Okay.
28, but I know because I saw it. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
but
still the record,
1,800
right?
yards rushing. I mean, and we're talking about what was his reception that year? 426. So over 2,000 yards of productivity
Just crazy.
and 30 over 30. Oh, it was 31 total touchdowns, including the receiving touchdowns. That's wild. That's why I'm one of those optimists that hope because I as a kid that was my favorite position was the running back. I have an Eddie George jersey. I have a LaDainian Tomlinson jersey. The running back position is just fascinating. I mean, I was a Buccaneers fan, so I liked Alscott, right? The fullback.
Hmm.
Remember the fullback? I there's something beautiful about the running game. I think we're blessed to see some great runners. They're not valued as much anymore, but I hope that's just a pendulum, you know? And it's also symbiotic because there is the argument here, and we saw it a little bit in the draft. I'm curious to get your thoughts because there was a lot of, besides the quarterbacks, people trying to find those offensive linemen of their future.
Yeah.
And there's conversations of just how much that play has diminished over the years. And so there's a symbiotic relationship between like really strong O line and then obviously a really great running back. And you really need both to excel. So I'm curious on your thoughts on some of those picks.
Yeah, so obviously the offensive line, both pass blocks and rush blocks, and I wonder when scouting which is a little bit more at a premium. I saw the crazy line that I saw yesterday was about Joe Alt, who was taken by the San Diego Charger, Los Angeles Chargers now, and he had 350 or so pass blocks last year and only let up one sack. Just crazy, crazy numbers. So obviously, you're right. Like a good offensive lineman could probably do both really well and support the run game, but I feel like the passing downs are pretty much every down, and you do like short passes now as a running play, like short little possession kind of throws, getting small chunks of yards, and it's kind of replacing the running game a little bit. Um, and so,
Mm,
yeah,
it's
the
true.
offensive line though is super important.
It's true. A lot of those screen passes, right? We're seeing screen passes more than ever. And so you're just letting your athletes, your wide receivers kind of run the ball in a different angle. And I do think that is taking over a lot of the run game. But man, you cannot deny that the Detroit Lions ascension, as much as they want to put it on Jared Goff, a lot of it is solid running back play. And I love it. I think that's why I'm becoming a fan of the Detroit Lions. If they can just keep playing that with good defense and then good running back play, call me old school, man. I just love it. I mean, my Buccaneers in 2003, they won the Super Bowl and they had Brad Johnson as the quarterback, right? Like, who the
Yep.
hell is Brad Johnson? I still don't know who he is. Did he play again after that year? I don't know. I don't remember.
I didn't even know if you gave me 100 guesses, I wouldn't have guessed Brad Johnson as QB for that team.
Hmm. Well, I only know because I have his jersey.
It's
It
like
was
a
on discount. It was
actor
on discount. It was the least relevant one.
doesn't make royalties off of that anymore. It's like some actor in a far off sitcom that still gets like 25 cents in the mail each month because TBS or something plays their reruns.
Yeah,
Great. Get
but
some money to Brad Johnson for that jersey.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Hey, someone's wearing it, Brad.
That's
Come on the
right.
show. Come on the show, Brad. Come on the show.
Speaking of wearing it out and wearing it proud, I have my McLaren gear on
I know,
to
Lando Norris.
commemorate, to honor, to cherish, to treasure the Lando Norris maiden victory. Long time coming. In F1 over this past weekend, Lando reached the top step of the podium, first place over Max Verstappen, who, I mean, uh, on all honesty, Max Verstappen should should have won the race. Lots of luck involved, but sometimes you need luck to finally break that. Seemed like a curse. You know, fun fact, fun line about Lando. Well, it probably wasn't fun for him, but just interesting for the rest of us is that he was the all-time leading point scorer in F1 without ever getting a win. So, points in F1, you get points in races for placing in the top 10.
Yeah.
Most points are awarded to the first place driver, and then sliding scale down to like 1 point for a 10th place. So, yeah, so all records are meant to be broken, and I'm glad this one was because I like him. He gets on ESPN right afterwards, drops an F-bomb. The announcers have to apologize on his behalf. And this happens all the time because these are grown individuals using a whole variety of vocabulary. Um, I don't understand the announcer feeling like they have to apologize on the athlete's behalf. I feel like you are almost part of the contract. Like if you're watching live sports,
Mhm.
it could happen any moment. You can just be hit with an F-bomb or something else, one of the other words you can't say on daytime television.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I honestly think daytime television or even live sports can stand to embrace it a little bit more. It'll make it a little bit more edgy, might get more eyeballs to it. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's why a lot of people are doing streaming and stuff, so they don't have to feel like they're watching, dialed back television when they
Yeah.
want to see it. HBO was very innovative in that approach, right? And I think that's why it was so successful for so long. Um, but back to Formula One. So it was right in my backyard, the Miami Grand Prix. So happy for Lando to get his first dub. I actually have family go there, but I have a bone to pick with Formula One. I feel like in this platform where we have a couple listeners, um, it's worth mentioning. And now, granted, I think some of this is related to the fact that when it comes to these Grand Prix, they're temporary structures, right? They're not permanent things that are there. I know there's some racetracks that are permanent, but Grand Prix, Las Vegas, the same thing. Like they're temporary structures. So there's I think regulation gets a little loosey goosey. But
Mm,
person in my family, I didn't go, but they have disabilities. They need accommodations when they go. They were awarded these tickets, so gifted these tickets. Um, and the reality is that, and I could expect this, and it's a little bit of Miami. That's why I don't live in Miami proper. But it's
mm,
also a little bit of the style of Formula One. It's this sort of European billionaire, millionaire playground sort of race thing, that they're trying to get the common man involved, but like ultimately you can't deny that it's a rich people's thing, especially to enjoy it the way I think it's meant to be enjoyed with the restaurants and the booze and the stuff. But these were expensive tickets. These were good tickets. Could not go up the stairs, right? Because they're so, again, temporary structures, right? So they're even higher than regular stairs as far as steepness, right? So couldn't get to the seats. They suggested that they had a disability section, but it was directly in the sun. So that was another thing. If you saw the race on TV, you have to be aware that that is Florida, Miami, South Florida sunshine beaming on people's head. So
mhm.
horrible racetrack, right? Like just looking at it on TV, like for the people, for the viewer, you're fine. It's like it looks awesome, right? With the colors and vibrancy. But that heat is real. In May, it might as well be the middle of summer, right? Like it is summertime in South Florida. And to have no shade, to have the disability section directly in the sun, and then the family couldn't sit together, right? The family, there's like, have the person sit here and then you go to your seats. And this was after and this is the reality that I think needs to be spoken, right? Is these like it's fun to watch on TV, but if you don't have $1 million to drop to go into the 100,000, because there's $100,000 restaurant, and go
Mm.
to some of these spaces, it's gonna be a miserable experience for you because just walking from where you have to park to where the racetrack or where your seats might be an hour or more, right? So the logistics of these Grand Prix in the US need to be reanalyzed and rethought out because at this point, and what it is, right? I think is it's become an Instagram, and I guess I'm aging myself, but like a TikTok trend because there are $40 tickets to just walk on, and you could say, "Oh, I'm here. Look at me. I'm at the Grand Prix." But where it's comfortable to actually enjoy to watch and be like you're at a sporting event, like we did at the hockey game, right? At the Washington, where you're sitting down, you have access to bathrooms, you have access to drinks readily available. To get those type of seats, you're talking about 20, 50,000, the $100,000 restaurant per person just to get inside. And this is a family that's not without means. These were expensive seats. So it's just a little bit of Miami. That's why I don't live in Miami proper. It's become, a millionaire's playground. It's become like it's not really for the regular person, and it's beautiful in its own way, but it's not for the regular person. And I gotta be honest with you, Nick. Part of me feels like Formula One itself is not for the regular person.
Yeah, no shame. Shame on Hard Rock Stadium for
Mm-hmm.
not doing what seems like the common sense thing is having a actually livable section for people with disabilities. It's not exclusive to Formula One, though, from what I've heard. People with disabilities go into different sporting events. Taylor Swift concerts are also notoriously bad because there's so many people. Um, so all in all, events wise, I think there is a large segment of our population who feel like well, if they even go because they feel like they know and they anticipate uh, physical discrimination, let's just say it, against them, that they just don't go. Um, but yeah, to your point about the money that it takes to go to one of these things, I saw on Instagram, of course, because that's where people are posting their
Yeah.
experiences with this,
Yeah.
the cost for food. And this isn't like the $100,000 restaurant that
No,
you
just
were
the
to. This
regular
is just
concession. Yeah.
grandstand food.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, oh, who needs lobster roll when they're watching? Anyway, there's like $100 lobster roll, buckets are $60+ of like 5 beers. So you can do the math there for yourselves, folks. That's that's not like you're saying. I agree with you 100%. That's not to the common man, the common racing fan who wants to see cars go fast. And if you do want to see cars go fast, they're probably better formulas or better circuits for you to go to than Miami. Like one of my bucket list ones is to go to Indianapolis, see the Indy 500. I don't know how much that costs, but
Yeah,
there's so many people there.
yeah,
You got to feel like there's a little bit more of a proletariat kind of vibe to whenever you get like 500,000 people, whereas Miami feels like super bourgeois and not anyway accessible. I'll never go. If I go to a Formula One race in the United States, it would likely be Austin and the Circuit of the Americas, which is also a NASCAR event.
yeah.
So they gotta they have a that's a permanent track. So they
Permanent.
have the likely like I've never been, but they likely have the facilities to support the number of people rather than the parking lots outside of Hard Rock Stadium. So yeah, that's a shame. That sorry to hear that the experience was bad for your family member. Kind of sours uh, the experience of you really saw something historic this weekend. I
Hmm.
don't know if we'll see Red Bull trip again this year.
Yeah,
It seems like the teams are closing that gap, but lots of things happened in the race that did not go in Red Bull's favor. They never seemed comfortable the whole weekend. So
yeah.
glad to see Lando win, and I'm glad to see Lando being Lando, dropping those F-bombs on national television. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's the thing. It's an underdog story. So for those, that's what's so historic about it as far as him getting his first dub, McLaren finally getting in the charts, right? At the top of the charts after so long, kind of being in the bottom tier for a while in Formula One. And Lando has been that ascension for that team and it's been loyal, and which has been great. Um, I just think, and you bring up such a good point because, and it's maybe worth mentioning a little bit. And am I flicking? Is my video flicking off and on? Because I see a little bit. What's crazy is this idea that maybe, like, in part of my ignorance, and maybe I'll find out more, but that people with disabilities and the accessibility of so many sporting events, we can do better, because it's one of the things it's worth mentioning, right? When it comes to accessibility, the disabilities group is the only one where we might not have been born in it, but we can join it at any point in time in our life. And then it becomes really relevant, right? We don't know. It takes one accident, it takes one a medical thing to then immediately get into that category. And realistically, even if we just age, we're probably going to be in that camp at some point in our life, right? And to not be able to enjoy sports. And so it's worth recognizing, having some empathy. And you bring up a great point, Nick, because I didn't know about the Taylor Swift stuff. And maybe we could just do better across the board. And I'm a little blinded to it because I go to Disney so often. And
Mhm.
personally, I feel Disney World's one of those places that's really good, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, it's everyone's in their scooters, even if they don't feel like, you don't know what disability they have. Maybe they just don't like walking. There's a lot of things, but it's all accommodating to everyone. They get to skip the line. There's benefits, there's stuff. And so in my mind, I'm used to that's America, right? That's what
Mhm.
America is. And in my mind, I've been to Europe, and Europe, bro. And it's not that they don't have people with disabilities. It's just that their culture is older. It's different, and there really is so much stuff that I know going to Europe with any sort of accessibility need can become really difficult because they are just not advanced at that in that area as far as I feel America is as far as accommodations. So, but to still say that we can do a lot better, I just assume you got elevators and permanent structures that can help you get up to where you need to be, you know. Um, the areas of accessibility are, and I know from the Sunrise Stadium here for the Florida Panthers down one game against the Boston Bruins, but we'll come back. Rar. The but the accessibility section, there's a section, right, that's always like right off the elevator that you could sit. And the idea, I hope, is that you keep the family together. I think
Yeah.
that was the bad thing, is like they couldn't sit together. You got to keep people together. Like if they come to a game together, they want to be together. So, yeah,
That
but
does violate, I
yeah,
think, a lot of ADA things that happen there. So they, yeah, this particular example of your family members is a particularly bad one, but like you're saying, there's so many other smaller, like just difficulties, not
mhm.
exactly like full on, like people are feeling oppressed by going to certain places, but just like little like additional difficulties that we, the able-bodied, don't have to think about.
Thank you for giving me the space and to talk about it. It's really important to see, because they're not going back, obviously. Even they would never pay, and I honestly would never pay for the amount of money that costs to go to
Yeah.
Grand Prix. Obviously, you could buy the $40 just Rome pass ticket, that gives you a certain area to just walk around, but there's no shade in the middle of summer. It's honestly a horrible race to be there. Like, it visually, I see it on the TV, it looks aesthetically pleasing, but to be there physically, unless you're in like where all the celebrities and Elon Musk are, like it's gonna be hard.
Yeah,
So I think Formula One can think, or at least Miami can think better about where the heck they're gonna have the Grand Prix in the future. It should be around trees. There should be much more shade than what there is. So
definitely.
yeah, that's it. All right, coming in hot.
Mentioned the Chel. Want to go
The
rip around
Chel,
the Chel
the
a little bit?
Chel.
I've actually been, folks, at home, actually been watching a lot more hockey than I have been. I'm a little bit away from my fiance for a little while. We each did our things this weekend. And not that she doesn't let me watch sports, it's just that like she hates sports. Yeah.
Same. I'm
So
married. I'm married. They do a good effort. Sometimes
yeah.
they'll watch, but usually I've gotten to a point where if I'm watching something, I'm still getting talked to about something else, of like a project, things to work on in the house. So it's never like
Mhm.
a fully involved watching session sometimes, especially in the evening.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's okay. And that's okay. But
we
I've
love
been
we love them. We love
we
them.
do. We do. I've been able to fully immerse myself in just the sports arts, just become one with the couch and watch a lot of sports over the past little bit here. So I'm ready, Luis, to talk about the Chell,
The
except
Chell.
for the Panthers and Bruins series, which I haven't watched.
Unbelievable. So who are you rooting for? Who are you going for? What games have you intrigued? Is it the Rangers? What you got? What do you got, my man?
I have some Rangers fans in my life, so I'm okay that they're up 2-0. That was a great game. Lots of great goaltending in that series. Um, I'm curious about the Dallas and Colorado series. I feel like slept on those teams a little bit, but yeah. What about, well, obviously you're Florida Panthers all the way.
All the way.
Got a little bit of an uphill battle. Boston's looking good. So what's your outlook for the rest of these playoffs?
So with the Florida series, I think game two is going to be hugely important. I think they got to come back and tie it 1-1. I think it could go one of two ways. Like I think positively it could be a shock to the Panthers to be like, wake up, because the Tampa Bay Lightning series went a lot their way. I mean, it was 4-1, so it's not like they swept, but it went their way a good chunk of the time. So Boston Bruins are no joke, and so I really think I hope that loss, because it was a big loss, right? It wasn't a close game, is a little bit of a shock to the system. I will say that when the Florida Panthers scored the goal, um, and then the Boston Bruins quickly scored right after, I was a little annoyed that that goal came off of a hockey player, of a Bruin, tripping over the goalie. And so, like, obviously the goalie now has a human being on them and is dealing with that while the puck is still out and about. And so I didn't fully understand why that was interference. It might have been, or why that wasn't called interference. It might have been because he was just ever so out of the goal area, the line. but I just really didn't appreciate that that was sort of not called. I know, and even the announcers were okay with it not getting called, but and so obviously my bias is showing a little bit, but
Mhm.
Bobby deserves better. Okay, Bobby deserves better. So I'm excited about game two. I think it's going to be really important for them to come out strong. But these are exciting teams. I'm glad that you got two Canadian teams. You got
Mhm.
the Canucks, and you got the Oilers. I do, and this is more of just like this is going to be a Gabby reference of I like their vibe, the Oilers. I like
Colors and vibes.
this vibe, like Edmonton. So I see them winning that series. Of course, they open that game one tonight. But man, bad day for Dallas, right?
Yeah,
So two losses on their game ones, right? Because you had the Mavericks and the Stars playing at the same time. Um, so you cannot sleep on Colorado. And I think the same thing I said about the Florida Panthers is really important for the Dallas Stars. They have to win game two. If the Avalanche are able to take in game two as well, they've been there, bro. They've been to the Stanley Cup. They've raised the Stanley Cup. So you're talking about more experienced team in the Avalanche. And so I think Dallas needs to come out strong in game two if they want to survive that series. And then the Rangers, awesome. Yeah, they got in the bag. Finally, New York has something to be excited about, Madison Square Garden. Finally. That's
we
my
got
take.
Knicks.
That's my take of the Chel. What about you? Who are you rooting for
Well,
though? Who's your one team?
um, I'll root for Vancouver just for
The Canucks.
the vibes,
The
just for the
vibe.
vibe.
Vancouver Canucks.
It's so fun. Just so fun to say.
Vancouver Canucks. Love Canadians, by the way. Love Canadians. Ice Wine
I
Steelers.
know. Well, I'm thinking like because of the way that the divisions are established in the NHL and they move the playoffs to not be like seeded, but kind of more like a bracket
Yeah.
between different divisions, we're not going to see as many Canadian teams get to the, I guess it's not there could be a possibility in the old way that there would be two Canadian teams playing in the championship
Mm-hmm.
for the East or the West, more mostly like the West. Now I don't feel like that's possible, right? And maybe I'm off here, but because they've put all the Canadian teams in one division, they kind of have to battle it out against each other. And
Just
so an American team almost always,
I'm gonna stop you there. There's one team on the eastern side that is possible, and that's the Toronto Maple Leafs.
yeah,
So
Maple
they're the
Leaf.
ones if they win out, and either the Canucks, Oilers, or hypothetically the Jets win. So it still could be two Canadian teams in the championship, but it's the chances of that are really rare because you have
Yeah.
three Canadian teams exclusively on the Western Conference and only one Canadian team on the. Well, actually,
Well, the Montreal
hypothetically,
Canadiens,
Montreal would
yeah,
be Eastern too. So
right,
so you have
right,
two and three, 2 and 3. So
right.
unless I'm missing another team on the West, I don't know if there's another team on the West.
And at least in the East, those two Canadian teams are
One,
in separate divisions, so they could face off with each other. Anyway, the Canadian teams far outnumbered by the American teams in the NHL anyway. But I feel like they should be. Yeah,
the Ottawa Senators, they might be on the Eastern Conference.
they are as well. Yeah, I keep forgetting about that team, man.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
The, just a tough one. But yeah, I'm going to root for Vancouver. I was wondering, because um, Dallas lost last night after jumping on Colorado 3-0 in the first period, and then Colorado fights back. Dallas doesn't score again in that game. Do you think that the way that you lose game one sets the tone, sets the outlook for the rest of the series? In other words, because of the way that Dallas lost last night, do you think that they are done, deflated? It's over. Like we gave it the best that we had, and we still fell short.
No, I think Dallas has some all-stars in it, right? Like it's an amazing team. And so it was a close game. Yeah, they came back. But that happens in sports. And that's why the series can be so special because people can come back. I think it's ultimately how they internalize it, right? They can make it a deflating moment, or they could be like, this is a shock to the system. We have to take this series to that next level, right? Because I think that's what happened with the Florida Panthers too. and you see the Carolina Hurricanes in that predicament right now with the Rangers, right? Where you take the first series, and you see how that goes, and you feel like you take that same energy into the second series, right? The problem is that the intensity is even more, right? The will to win is even more. And so you have to crank it up a notch. And so you can deflate it, and you can get in a situation where you don't meet the moment. But it's also an opportunity that game one, it's like when I took tests. So like I never freaked out about like an early test in any course and getting an F or a D. Because to me, it was just the first gauge, right? Like, and sure enough, then I knew how much I needed to study. So I would mostly take the first test of any course without studying, because I wanted to know what my benchmark is on the difficulty of how this course was going to be. But if I
Mhm.
didn't do well, then I know I need to increase my intensity. And I think that's what you're seeing in game one. Carolina got caught slipping. And so now it's really hard to believe that they can come back in that series, but it's
Yeah.
possible. They just got to increase the intensity. So I think Dallas has to realize, like, okay, we can't let up the gas when we have a lead. This team wants it. They'll put it all on the line. That
Mhm.
has won the Stanley Cup before.
Has experience.
Yeah, has experience. So we can't play. So I don't think it's a series ender. I think we'll see more of that in games 2 and 3 on when we can predict that series being over.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. And the NBA side, you could say the same thing about the other Denver team,
Oh
the
yeah.
Nuggies. The Nuggies, man. I just can't believe the Timberwolves.
Huggies.
How and they're missing their big guy that would match up with Jokic. I'm talking about Rudy Gobert. It didn't matter. They just flat out dominated in Denver. So that series, it's looking similarly to that Carolina and New York series where huge uphill battle for Denver. But like you were saying about the Avalanche, funny that these are in the same city, but
Yeah.
uh, they have that championship winning experience. So you kind of feel like if any team can get back after it, it could be the Nuggets. So we'll see about that. Sorry, bouncing around a lot here. Just what you were saying brought to mind the NBA. I wish it had a fun nickname like the
Oh,
Chel
the association, right?
Association.
They
There
call
you
it
go.
the association. Yeah.
That's perfect.
In
Sounds
the NFL, there's the shield, right?
mm-hmm.
Um,
That's so
it's fun. Nicknames
sophisticated.
are good.
Yeah, Rudy Gobert won the defensive player of the year this year, and he
Wow.
was out
Wow.
thinking.
Wow. Because he's French, right? So I can say toi is
Hmm.
Robert. Wow.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
it's for our French listeners. See, I know.
OKC's looking good. Boston looking
Bro,
very solid. I just feel like
yeah,
the
talk to me about
series.
OKC. OKC's strange, bro. That's crazy. I would not have predicted.
I don't. I don't know. I think Gilgis. I always mispronounce his last name because I'm silly.
Give it to
Gilgis Alexander is
yeah.
just next level.
Mhm.
So I'm excited. I want to see. All right. So in the NBA side of things, I know this is like not sexy at all, but I would love to see the Thunder and the T-Wolves. Man, just two teams that historically speaking seem to have like, well, the Thunder have been to the NBA Finals before in their Big Three
Yeah.
era, but of recent times, back in, I don't know, like at least in the 2020s, I'm speaking here, it's like these two teams have no business being this good and this far in the playoffs, but love to see it. I love to see it. I don't like Dallas. I like Denver, but yeah, for all the reasons that I just said, Denver looks like they are kaput. So um,
Nuggies. Nuggies.
the Nuggies.
I like it. I like that nickname. All this is a testament to the draft really can work
Yeah.
for the NBA as far as
Great.
creating parity. Their contract situation with motivating players to stay at smaller market teams is working. Like
Mm.
this is showing me that, oh, like they learned from the big three era, from all of this, from what the Durantula was doing, you know, and really showing that, hey, like if you stick it out, like you can benefit. And so I am the same boat. Two small market teams. I mean, I'm a fan of Orlando. They got put out, but they're a smaller market team. My whole life, that was the only professional sports team I had access to. So I absolutely bleed blue and white. And to see these smaller market teams get their moment in the sun. Not that Minneapolis is that small. It's a beautiful city, but I would still consider a smaller market team just because of the area. You know, it's not as highlighted as some of the others. So to see Minnesota and OKC in the Western Conference Finals, that would be super cool. And at the same time, you have an opportunity on the. I think the Celtics got it though. I think
Yeah.
absolutely you're going to have the legacy of the Celtics push through. They just seem like a complete team. I might be wrong. It might be a close match, but I think they got this. And if New York is able to win that series, but stay kind of depleted in the injury, then it should be a shoo-in for the Celtics to make it to the finals. That elusive finals for that team, for that core. So super exciting, really interesting to watch. But now I'm gonna pivot, unless you got anything else to say about the association.
One more thing real quick. My
Yeah,
hot take, I don't know how hot this is, but I think Indiana ultimately wins that series.
it's possible. It's possible.
I watched the ending quarter of that game one and just some questionable decisions made by the players of Indiana at the end. They should have still won that game. So be on the lookout. You heard it here first, but
First,
probably someone else more famous said it first.
Mr. DeMayo coming in hot.
Indiana.
So moving away from the association, Ale Paris, Paris
Yeah.
est magique. PSG, man. I mean, with Mbappe's impending departure from PSG, I really didn't know how the heck they made it this far because um, as far as chemistry goes, really, really hard to win the Champions League when your chemistry as a team is all over the place. And I think that's what's so strange about European football is I think in America we have this, and I know it's not across the board. Every team is like this. I know that there's definitely individuals and superstars who have melodramas, who are dramatic and all this stuff. I know we have that as well. But I think as American sports fans, we still like the testimony of the team, right? Like when someone wins, it's the team that wins. And I feel like European football is not like that, you know, or is it? Because we had Borussia Dortmund beat the giant of PSG to make it to the Champions League final. And you better believe I'm rooting for BVB all day,
Yeah.
right? BVB all day. What an awesome accomplishment for them.
What so second leg of um Munich and Real Madrid. It's later on today, so we're speaking before we know what's going to happen, but how amazing would an all German final be? Just insane.
As far as watching for me, and this is going to be maybe sacrilegious for some people, but the like when I'm putting on football in the morning here in the US, if I had a choice, even if it's teams like I don't like, I've seen Cologne so many times, I just love Bundesliga. I love the fan base in Bundesliga. I love the atmosphere. I love the physicality. And maybe I'm speaking out of like lack of knowledge, but I do feel when I'm watching Premier League or I'm watching La Liga, which to me, La Liga, I love Spain, but bro, it's pretty much unwatchable. Like
Mhm.
it's a foregone conclusion of who's going to win most of the time, right? Like it's not a real competitive league. It's just the same thing like Ligue 1. You're talking about two or three teams to watch, and that's not fun. Whereas Bundesliga really does feel like a complete package of a league. Premier League's got a little bit of that feel to it too, but I love the physicality and I love the atmosphere. It's not as reserved, right? There's some up, and that BVB fan base, those supporters, that supporter group is legendary, right?
Mhm.
For BVB. and it's just like you feel the energy as you're watching. And so I'm all about Bundesliga. It would be so cool for BVB to end its story by slaying the giant of Bayern Munich for the final. I think that would be cool to see. But are you thinking Bayern's going to get it?
I am, yeah, I'm gonna say yeah, because they have that little bit of an edge right now. Tied on aggregate. Sorry, but I still feel like they have a little bit of an edge over Madrid. Madrid had a really tight um, quarterfinal leg against City. So um, all the things considered, the amount of game congestion at the end here, I'm gonna go with Bayern. I actually watched that game too. Um, a final between Bayern and Dortmund. I would
Yeah.
watch that. I don't know if I would watch Real Madrid Dortmund final, honestly. I don't know if that says more about me, probably does, than it says about the final, but I don't know. I'm
I
not interested in seeing Real Madrid win another. That's that.
Yeah. I think they match up. BVB matches better. So I'm definitely going to root for BVB
Mm.
from the Bundesliga. But I think they match up better with Bayern. Like they're two teams who know each other. And so BVB has, I think, a better chance of winning in that sort of championship final. Whereas I think if it's Real and BVB, I'm concerned that I think the experience of Real is just going to be a foregone conclusion. But you got to
Mm.
say, as much as people are hating on Real, they don't have Mbappe yet. Like the way
Yeah.
they've been coached and the way they're playing on that elite level, it's like, to me, it's like what the Yankees should have been after Jeter, but they weren't, as far as consistent greatness, right? Like, because the Yankees is that
Mhm.
franchise as in the US, right? That's just global freaking crazy marketing. Like, but they haven't been great recently, where it's like, how long has it been since Real has had Gareth Bale or freaking Cristiano Ronaldo? It's been a while, and they're
Mhm.
still in the conversation in the finals, winning chips, like that consistent greatness. I mean, as much as you want to say they're an evil empire, bro, like they don't have Mbappe yet, and they're executing at this level, and your Man City, to be honest with you, more recently has been that sort of evil empire too, just scooping
Yeah.
up all the players. Give gobble, gobble, gobble. Give me up. You're good. Gobble, gobble, gobble. Give me more. Gobble, gobble, gobble. That's all they do. It's just give me the best players.
They're
Um
like I didn't think turkeys. It's like a turkey sound, but I guess
gobble, gobble,
how did
gobble, gobble.
how
Yeah.
did turkeys get connoted with gluttony? I want to know.
Well, I mean, Thanksgiving is the most gluttonous holiday that
Yeah, maybe
we
it is
have.
that. Huh.
Yeah.
Sorry, complete digression. But
Yeah.
you're right. City is like that all-star team, and it's a lot of people hate to see it. It's
Mhm.
similar to how Real Madrid uh gets hate for collecting all their players. But just last year, well, I guess beginning of this year, Karim Benzema, their super striker, left,
Mhm.
and still they they put together wins. I'm not saying they manufacture wins because they have talent, obviously in spade and loads, but um, yeah, they find a way.
I will say there's no doubt that, and I'm going to put Bundesliga on the same camp, that if you win the Champions League out of the Premier League or Bundesliga, sorry, getting emails. We're working, baby. We're cooking. We're working, right? Um, that if you get into the Champions League final from the Bundesliga or Premier League, that gauntlet is way
Mm.
tougher than what La Liga has to go through or Ligue 1 has to go through. There is no question that Bayern and BVB's path to the final is way tougher than Madrid's, because there's just no real competition. And even Barcelona has been dwindling in the wind as far as like real relevancy,
Yeah.
post Lionel Messi. So
Yeah.
I think it's worth mentioning just how profound it is for Manchester City to have accomplished what they accomplished, because I think it's a harder path
Mm.
to accomplish that than Madrid. Because I think what happens with Madrid is maybe they don't have the superstars you think, but they're able to perform because their league is easy. So they're able to put all their eggs into the Champions League basket and really
Yeah.
perfect, chef's kiss, that competition. Whereas if you're in the Premier League or Bundesliga, you do have to prioritize the league. You do
No
have to,
weeks off. There's
yeah.
no weeks off.
There's no weeks off, so it's a tougher gauntlet. Tougher gauntlet. So,
Yeah.
but
I don't know.
it's your bachelor party. I don't know if the
Yes,
switch or
sir.
the bachelor party this weekend. I'm curious what you were grilling, what you were cooking, what was the highlight? Because we got to talk food some point.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, as it being my bachelor party, I took and offloaded some of the cooking responsibilities that I usually like to take to just ordering a crap ton of pizza and then eating that for a good portion. But then I did have just this all-consuming craving over the past few weeks for some ribs, and make do with what we got, right? So obviously bought the ribs, made the rub. So the rub is of the utmost. It's so important. You need the sugar, you need the salt because it flavors the meat and also provides some caramelization. And so got the rub, then we got there and I realized I didn't have like all of the requisite ingredients to make like a barbecue sauce. So what I ended up doing was braising these bad boys in Coca-Cola and a little bit of vinegar and some sugar. And you know what? It turned out lip smacking good. It was not exactly as I imagined it because, well, it was a bachelor party and the the overall level of focus that I had on those ribs was probably less than optimal, but um, still had a really solid flavor, very tender. So I think I'm back in the ribs game, man. I'm back in the slow cooked ribs game. Super easy. You don't have to like baby it. You just let it roast and then brush it with sauce, broil it, or put it on your grill, however you like. And voila,
Yeah.
you got
Oh,
some good ribs.
yeah, this is an old man moment, old man admission, but I've been staying away from like barbecue places, right? Because I love grilling, but something about barbecue places, man, it's been giving me a lot of heartburn. So it's been like a
Oh
year,
yeah.
like avoiding barbecue places. So I haven't had ribs in a while, but I think I just have to make them myself, uh, like you and the team did. That's great. That sounds
And
really
what
good.
about you, my friend? What's been on your plate these
Well,
past couple of weeks?
Cinco de Mayo, which is really more of an American holiday than Mexican holiday. I feel like we have commandeered that holiday for ourselves
Oh
to
yeah.
enjoy our love of Mexican food because we do love it in this country. We got to admit it. That culinarily, we just something speaks to that food in us. It's part of America. Like at this point, I see Mexican food is part of America. It's part, like,
Yeah.
as much as pizza, and stuff, which is also Italian, but it's like our culinary food is from other places, but hype like done differently within the context of our country. So I experiment with some stuffed chilies or stuffed peppers,
Mhm.
relleno. So I put some Mexican rice and cheese and put that in the grill. And that was delicious. Just the saltiness of the cheese and rice with the sweetness of the red pepper was just a beautiful combination as a side dish. And asparagus, like how many people like asparagus? And as I was cooking them, my wife reminded me that my pea's gonna smell for a couple days, and sure enough, it did.
It
Uh,
does.
too much information, I know, but I ended up doing bacon wrapped asparagus in the grill, so like elevating them, and that turned out wonder. I mean, they were. I mean, you're just popping them in like they were better than French fries. All right, not all French fries, but some French fries. They're better than steak cut fries, like those big boys. Um, it was delicious. It was delicious. But you had all that bacon grease, right? And I had these nice New York strips. So I ended up grilling the steaks and then the final minute or two searing them on the bacon grease pan. And so it got that nice flavor. So it really, I mean, it was like butter, but I didn't use butter. I just used the bacon grease. And
Free flavor.
that
Free
was
flavor right
that
there.
was awesome. That was the highlight as far as culinary pursuits went, was the was that steak. Man, that was so crazy, and the bacon wrapped asparagus. But I got a gas grill, Nick. I got a gas grill like 2 weeks ago, and now I've been grilling almost every day. I love it.
Yeah, you've been running that thing nonstop. I think
Yeah.
I might have asked you this before, so but why not ask again? How do you like your steaks cooked?
Medium rare. Medium rare
Medium
is my
rare.
goal.
Me
Medium
too.
rare is my goal. Sometimes it comes out medium.
Mm-hmm.
These
Still
ones
good though.
I cooked came out medium, but they were so flavorful that it didn't matter. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so
There's some in the any particular cut that you go for typically.
I think just like most of the time, like lean wise, I do love in its basic, but I love the filet mignon.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect. Like New York strips, like some of the other and ribeyes are easier to grill.
Mm-hmm.
Skirt steak's delicious as well.
Yeah.
Especially if you get it from an Argentinian butcher, their skirt steak is amazing. So you put some churrasco, or chimichurri sauce on it. That cut is amazing, churrasco. But yeah, I love like when I'm at a restaurant, more often than not, I'll order filet mignon. It's leaner, it's beautiful to cut, and when you see it medium rare, it's just a beautiful thing. And yeah, so that's usually what I order is filet mignon. What about you?
There's the tenderness of a muscle on the cow that doesn't really get a whole lot of action, you know.
Mhm.
But then I think, and this is my personal opinion, it doesn't have as much of a meaty flavor as the strip, as the ribeye. Even I like, and it's way cheaper, fortunately, but I like the skirt and the flank as well. I would rank the filet over those two there. But I think I'm a guy who likes a little bit of grizzle, that all that fat rendering out adds a whole lot of flavor. I speak this like I don't grill steaks nearly as much as you do, my friend, but um, going to a steak restaurant, and if I'm like I don't want to have the filet mignon, then I'll have a less expensive one. I'm cool with that.
Yeah. Well, interesting thing about grilling filet mignon is like you don't like I don't grill it for long, right? And then I finish cooking it in the oven. Is usually
Hmm.
what I do to try to get that same restaurant quality of tenderness. It's really
Yeah,
hard because it's so thick to try to grill it, and make sure it gets cooked in the middle,
yeah,
without getting super crisp on the ends. But there's no doubt that that ribeye and that strip, like the fattiness of it, even though like I end up I don't eat the fat, right? I leave it to the
right.
side. But like it really does add flavor to the steak. Um, it's just the steakhouses they add the calories on there. You know what I'm
Uh,
talking about? Like
that should be illegal.
and so like I'm looking at, I'm like, no, I'll just do the filet mignon. That's good.
Hmm.
That's good. I'm not gonna do 1,000 or calories just on the steak or something. Like it's like 1,900 calories on a ribeye. It's like
Yeah,
no, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna hold off on doing that.
that's
So,
right. No, every once in a while, why not? But
yeah,
I agree with you. Oh, when they put, like obviously, like at fast food restaurants, the calorie labels are need to be there as a public health service to
yeah.
people. But at restaurants where you're going to every once in a while, just let people live their lives.
Mm,
Uh, they show that but they show just calories and fat.
yeah.
They don't show you I mean, you can further investigate and find the cholesterol like that. That's obviously going to be high no matter what kind of meat you're eating. So and they only provide you just like the smallest snippet of information, just that make you feel bad about ordering it without giving you like any of the good stuff about it, like the amount of protein, the amount of iron, the amount of other
That's
night
it'd be
nutrients and
nice if
stuff.
you're gonna show it all. Might as well show it all.
Yeah.
That's
End of TED Talk about nutrition labels in restaurants being very less than helpful.
It does impact me. It does impact. I'm not a calorie counter, but if I'm at a restaurant, I'm looking at it, I know I've eaten before, like in the day, like I had breakfast, I ate lunch. So it's like I
Mhm.
look at it, I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna order something that's, almost my complete daily calorie intake,
Yeah,
hard to.
yeah. Also, the portions are just like big. Americans come to expect bigger portions. I don't recall ever seeing spare in like fast food restaurants in Europe any sort of like talk of calories or any mention of like how much fat or sugar something has. And I am assuming that because the portions are a little bit smaller, you wouldn't have to worry as much about like if you had a steak that it would be your entire caloric intake for a day. It probably wouldn't be. So yeah, got a little something in the United States about like making everything massive, but then also making you feel bad about enjoying your massive steak.
Sure. One or the other, America. One or the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go. I don't know, Nick, if you want to land this plane.
Yeah. Got any travel plans coming up here, my friend?
Yeah.
Anything
A,
to tell the
a
people at home?
Yeah, a couple. I For Memorial Day weekend, we booked the French Quarter in Disney. So we're excited to shout out to Darwin, one of my close friends, who's really my brother's friend, but he's my friend too. Um, he works for Disney. He's a big product owner, like a big leader in the product ownership space. And so he gave us hooked us up with a big discount on the room, and which was really nice. Like we're looking at prices and we're like, we can't pass this up. So super excited to go to Disney for Memorial Day weekend. Really taking a relaxing approach to it. Going to spend a lot of time in the hotel in Disney Springs. Not planning to go to the parks too much, or at least for too long. But one of the places we've never eaten before is at Germany Pavilion, the beer garden. So it's going to be super cool to be able to enjoy that. And then in July, I'll remind you, but I am going on Freedom of the Seas for a 4-night, 5-day cruise to the Bahamas. We got a junior suite. We splurged a little bit. It's our anniversary on July 2nd. So really excited. Yeah, got some trips. What about you?
As well, my fiance's family member just went on the Freedom of the Seas in a junior suite. So I'll tell you a little bit more offline what they thought about it.
Yeah,
It
me
was
too.
pretty legendary. So travel wise, man, I'm getting married, so going to be kind of shuttling between the DC area and Portland a bit this summer, but still doing some fun stuff. Uh, Excited to be enjoying the glorious weather of the Pacific Northwest, like little or no humidity, versus DC, which is just like already like stinky armpit weather. So
Yeah, yeah.
just looking forward to that.
We've been
And
taking our pit
yeah,
weather for a while. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Congratulations. We'll be here next week, folks, the morning podcast. So have a great rest of your week, folks.
cheers.